All right, let's just jump right into what is, without a doubt, one of the strangest, most gruesome, and frankly, unbelievable events in all of history. This is a story about political power and revenge, so intense, it literally reached beyond the grave. So picture this. We're in Rome, the year is 897. We're standing inside the Basilica of St. John Lateran, the main cathedral of the Pope himself. But there's no holy celebration happening today. No. Something else is about to begin, a trial. And that, right there, is the central, absolutely absurd question of the day. The defendant, well, he's already dead. He's been dead for 9 months. So how in the world do you put a corpse on trial? The answer, it turns out, was as simple as it was horrifying. You dig him up. You dress his body in sacred robes, and you put the zombie pope on the stand. This was the Cadaver Synod. Now you have to be asking, what could possibly drive someone to do something this insane? Well, to understand the what, we really have to dig into the why. This wasn't some random act of madness. Oh no. This was the explosive climax of a bitter political feud, a true papal Game of Thrones. You see, this whole thing went down during a period historians call the Seclum Obscurum, which literally means the dark century. And it was dark. During this time, the papacy wasn't so much a high spiritual office as it was a political prize, a weapon to be fought over and won by the most powerful families in Rome. And at the very heart of this mess were two warring factions. Think of it as Team Formosus versus Team Spoleto. Pope Formosus had his allies, for sure, but the Spoleto family was a real powerhouse, and they saw Formosus as a direct threat to their ambitions. And then Formosus made a fatal mistake. He crowned a rival, a man named Arnulf of Carinthia, as the Holy Roman Emperor. To the Spoleto family, this wasn't just politics, it was a deep personal betrayal. And it was an act they would never, ever forgive, not even in death. So fast forward a bit, Formosus dies. His successor lasts a whopping 15 days before he dies too. And then the Spoleto family gets exactly what they wanted. They install their own guy, their puppet, Pope Stephen VI, onto the papal throne. The stage was finally set for their revenge. So, now that we know the political score, let's get back to the main event, the absolutely grotesque spectacle of the trial itself. Okay, so here's how it went down. Step 1, they dug up the 9-month-old rotting corpse of Pope Formosus. Step 2, they dressed this zombie pope in the full magnificent robes of his office. Step 3, they physically propped his dead body onto the papal throne. And for the final, truly absurd touch, they assigned a young deacon to stand beside the corpse and answer questions for him. I mean, can you even picture the scene? It was pure theater of the macabre. You have Pope Stephen VI alive and screaming accusations at a dead body, while a terrified young deacon squeaks out answers in a high-pitched voice, pretending to be the man who's been dead for almost a year. Of course, they had to make it look official, so they cooked up some charges. Things like perjury and a technicality about illegally transferring from one church position to another. But the real goal was the last charge, declaring all of his acts, every priest he'd ever ordained, null and void. See, this wasn't just about destroying a man. It was about erasing his entire legacy from the books. And get this whole sham trial wasn't over in an afternoon. No, this surreal spectacle dragged on for 3 full days. So, after 3 days, the verdict was in. Shocker, the corpso was found guilty. But this moment of so-called justice was just the beginning. The aftermath was about to plunge Rome into even more blood and chaos. The punishment was as symbolic as it was horrific. They ripped the papal robes right off the corpse. They took a blade and hacked off the 3 fingers he had used to give blessings. They branded him a false pope, and then they dragged his mutilated body through the streets of Rome and threw it into the Tiber River. But this was a step too far. The people of Rome, who had just witnessed this nightmare, were utterly horrified. A riot erupted. The mob grabbed Pope Stephen VI, the man who orchestrated the whole thing, threw him in prison, and a short time later, he was strangled to death. Vengeance, as it turns out, is a very vicious cycle. And the timeline here is just staggering. Think about it. The trial of the zombie pope in January. The murder of his accuser by mid-year.
And by the end of the year, the whole verdict is thrown out and annulled. All of that chaos, all in a single turbulent year.
And the story somehow gets even stranger. According to legend, fisherman leader pulled Formosus' body from the river, and it was said to be performing miracles. So he was given a final, honorable burial back in St. Peter's Basilica. His long, bizarre journey was finally over. So, okay, why are we still talking about this wild story more than 1,000 years later? Because the Cadaver Synod wasn't just some historical oddity. It actually had a profound and lasting impact. Well, for starters, it created total administrative chaos. By declaring all of Formosus' acts invalid, you suddenly had thousands of priests and bishops across Europe whose positions were technically illegitimate. It was a crisis of authority that shook the very structure of the church. Historians pretty much agreed that this was the absolute lowest point of that dark century. It's this chilling, perfect example of what happens when political feuds and raw power completely corrupt a spiritual institution, leading to acts that just defy all logic and human decency. And the sheer shock value of this story has never really faded. It's been referenced by famous writers like Dante, immortalized in haunting paintings, and it continues to pop up in modern horror and satire. The trial of the zombie pope is just a story that's too wild to ever be forgotten. So, in the end, what do we make of this? Was the Cadaver Synod just a moment of historical madness, a bizarre one-off, or is it something more? A timeless, chilling warning about what happens when human ambition and the thirst for revenge are allowed to consume absolutely everything, even the sanctity of death itself.